Sox seem to be really bothered by that.
Well, that was going to be my other point. It gave him something. Obviously, any coach is going to be looking for any kind of bulletin board material to get his team fired up. But yeah, that's not something you really want to do. Is just give Rex any excuse to get fired up.
Exactly.
So anyway, say hello to my man Willie Colon.
Yes,
one of the last few Hofstra men in the league.
Mm-hmm. I will also have to talk to Willie in the locker room today about the penalties. They're getting out of control.
Tell him to stop that stuff. making my alma mater look bad.
Well, Kimberly, thanks for joining us. I know you have a story to write today, so we appreciate you coming on for the 15 minutes, and hopefully we have you back again soon.
Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it.
We've been talking with Kimberly Martin.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Newsday beat writer, and, of course, Newsday.com if you want to read her articles. If you haven't picked up today's paper, of course, pick up the paper first if you can.
Yes.
We're newspaper guys. Timmy
of course
works for a newspaper, or used to. And we like to,
always read a paper.
I still get a newspaper at home. I just don't go to the internet. And
buy a newspaper. Journalists got to eat.
Yeah. By the way, Tim, if they want to follow you on Twitter,
that would be at Real Tim Leonard. They can follow me. Please feel free to follow me. I usually have some good stuff on Twitter.
Okay, we'll be back right after this with From the Pressbox.
If you love 80s music, listen up. From rock to pop to new wave and everything in between, it's Essential 80s. Friday mornings at 12 a.m. and Saturday mornings at 9. I'm Jamie Trovato, and I'm your host for 2 full hours of commercial-free 80s music that you know and love on 90.3 FM WHPC, the radio voice of Nassau Community College.
Hi, this is Michael Anthony. Join me every Saturday from 7 to 10 p.m. for the best of traditional jazz and American popular standards. The vocalists, musicians, arrangers, and composers are always celebrated each week with artist profiles and special guests. It's a celebrated musical art form that is alive and well. So tune in every Saturday from 7 to 10 p.m. for The Unforgettables on WHPC 90.3 FM, the voice of Nassau Community College, the station that gives you music, memories, and so much more.
Hey, this is DJ Searich, and you can listen to my show, The Jazz Cafe, Mondays at 11 a.m. Join me as I play classics from Roy Ayers, Grover Washington Jr., Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, and many others. So join me as I play the classics and soon-to-be classics on The Jazz Cafe on Mondays at 11 a.m. right here on WHPC 90.3 FM, the radio voice of Nassau Community College, now streaming on ncc.edu/WHPC.
I think of, not the Yankees when I think of this song, I think of the great scene from 16 Candles, where Farmer Ted is talking to Jake.
Was this song playing?
Yeah, it was playing.
And I just watched 16 Candles about a week and a half ago.
One of the songs they played. And we talked about the power that women have over men.
Farmer Ted was a wise man.
Yes, I remember. So anyway, let's continue. We were talking about Jeter's celebration. We had to talk to Kimberley Martin, which was always a good thing. And I thought the Yankees did the right thing. This whole thing though seemed very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very quick. Instead of having it at the end of the season, the Yankees know that they're playing the Red Sox and it's going to be a sellout. So they say, okay, let's move it up into the month. That's what I. That's what.
Yeah, I kind of think the timing of it all was a little curious because obviously there still is a pretty significant number of games left in the season, and obviously playing the Royals nowadays. I mean, back in the 70s, this would have been a big deal kind of game because those two teams were huge rivals back then. But it just, they kind of threw it together, and that's why for example Andy Pettitte wasn't able to be there because apparently he was off elk hunting somewhere. I don't know exactly where he was, but
and he couldn't get his refund back.
Somewhere where elk hang out.
And no offense against Andy Pettitte, but you know what? Your core 4 brother is retiring. You show up.
I think Andy Pettitte should have been there. And as much I love Andy Pettitte, great player, great Yankee, great man. Andy Pettitte's another guy, just does everything the right way. With the exception of the thing there with what I'm saying. But probably should have been there. Probably should have said, all right, you know what, I can go shoot elks some other time, and this is something I should be there for. Because if you noticed, and this is something I noticed yesterday while I was watching the ceremony, Andy Pettit's the only member of the core four really who has any hair left. Posada's going gray in a hurry, and Mo is completely shaved now. Jeter has got it buzzed so that there's barely any hair there. Pettit's the only guy who's really got a good-looking head of hair, like my own, by the way. But that's
think about it. You got Cal Ripken's, his hair is basically shaved off,
bald.
Michael Jordan is bald.
Jordan was a surprise for me. He was a surprise that he was there.
Why was he there?
Because he and Jeter, the Jumpman brand. I don't even know if you know what that is.
No.
All right. The Jumpman brand, which is Jeter's brand now for athletic apparel and whatnot. The model is him doing the jump throw.
Oh, okay.
That's
is it a
Jordan,
Nike thing?
That's a Nike thing. It's through Jordan's company. Jordan actually has his own separate company besides doing the Nike stuff.
Oh, okay.
And the Jumpman goes through Jordan, and that's where that connection is. So, those two have been connected for a long time because that Jumpman logo has been around for a while. It's been probably at least a decade now. So that's why Jordan was there, because of that business connection, but also because he has a lot of respect for Jeter as well. I mean, that's what I was talking about before, in the first segment of the show. That's the kind of respect that Jeter has all around the sports world. I mean, when you have astronauts in space who want to be a part of the ceremony and are shown tipping their caps to Jeter, even though one of these clowns is wearing an Orioles shirt. It shows the amount of respect that all baseball fans have for Derek Jeter. And people are talking about who's the next one, and you probably have to look at a guy like Mike Trout from the Angels,
right? Because
he's another one who's kind of in that mold where he plays hard every play, and he has a lot of different ways he can beat you, whether it's on defense, hitting home runs, stealing bases. He's a 300 hitter, and the guy just does everything right. And he's also got that kind of personality, and he's not going to be the guy that you find in a hot tub with four bimbos and a bottle of champagne. I mean
like A-Rod.
Well, whoever, but. He's the kind of guy, he does things the right way. And, to me, one of the worst moments of the season for me was when Trout signed a long-term extension with the Angels because I want the guy to play for the Yankees. And he's a Jersey kid, too. I mean, the kid, he grew up in South Jersey. So, I kind of thought that maybe he'd want to come home. But, I guess I can't blame the guy for wanting to be in L.A.
Well, it can't, but it was a pretty good deal otherwise. I mean, Jeter gave a short but nice speech.
Yeah, thanked everybody, thanked the fans, a lot of stuff towards the fans, and he talked about how he wanted to bring them joy and happiness and and entertainment and talked about what they gave back to him, and he's always been mindful of the fans and conscious of what they provide, and he's always been very, very respectful of the fans, and he's always obviously every player calls their fans the greatest fans in the world. I mean, that's kind of become a cliche, but Jeter, he knows what the fans mean to the Yankees, and he knows that the prices that they're paying to be there is the other part of it.
Well, you said something before we came on the air about how this was sort of like an old timers day for the Yankees in many ways, because a lot of Yankees showed up to celebrate Jeter's career, and how this might be, if the Yankees don't get going, it could be like the 70s before, 74 really, when it was to celebrate the 60s all the time and the 50s.
Yeah, I'm not expecting that, only because
and the
economics of baseball are different. And actually, I'm personally optimistic about the Yankees minor league system now. But that being said, I don't think that they're really going to see the fruits of that system for at least 4 years. So that's part of the problem is all of their best prospects right now are pretty young guys. I mean, they have Aaron Judge, who's a big-time power-hitting prospect, and all of these guys are first-round picks from last year. Aaron Judge, Eric Jagiello, who's a third baseman, and a pitcher that they drafted out of high school by the name of Ian Clarkin. And those three guys could be the core of something pretty special in the future. But again, I mean, how many times do you hit on 3 top picks. I mean, the Yankees had picks because they allowed Steve Swisher or Nick Swisher to go. They allowed some of their free agents to go for a change and didn't sign any, and so they got picks. And this past draft, the one that just happened a couple of months ago, because they signed so many guys, they didn't have a pick until the third round. Right. And that you can't build a team that way, especially in this day and age. You can't do it that way. And I mean, from what I was saying, before we came on, this ceremony yesterday, it was kind of like, to me, what Old Timers Day is going to be in the future.
Well, that's what we were talking about before.
Yeah, because you look at it, I mean, it wasn't about Yogi and Whitey wasn't there, and like the old guys from the 50s. This is your father, the Yankee fan, is was the guy, or like even now, I guess grandfather, I have to say, just because we're getting older. But they were the ones who
Whitey and Yogi were always
and
there.
Mickey Mantle and Moose Skowron and all of those guys.
Hank Bauer.
Yeah, all those guys from the 50s who were winning World Series after World Series. And that was, those teams were, those guys were their guys.
Yeah.
And now we're at a point where all of these guys from the 90s teams that dominated, those are like my guys.
Right.
And even a generation younger, because because they're from the 90s. But all of these guys were here yesterday. I mean, I'm looking at a picture. Here's Matsui and Torrey and Coney and Bernie and Paul O'Neill and Tino and I don't know who that is. It looks like Bernie. No, there's Mariano and Posada.
Rock Raines is there.
They threw Reggie in there too. Yeah, Rock Raines was there.
Rock Raines? There for
Gerald Williams was there.
Yankee for a season.
3 seasons they played with you. Yeah, he was around for a little while.
Okay.
And like I said, Gerald Williams, who I'm surprised he's not incarcerated right now. But I mean, these guys, and even Winfield to a lesser extent. I mean, Winfield was kind of the old guy there. And you didn't have all of these Yankees from the days of yore, as they like to say. This is what Old Timers Day is going to look like for like the next 20 years. And these 90s teams are going to be celebrated. And then, but the position that the Yankees are in now, who's going to be celebrated from the 2014 Yankees?
No one.
There's not really anybody. I mean, maybe
especially if they don't make the playoffs.
Well, I mean, if David Robertson sticks around, and he is a free agent after this season, but assuming that he sticks around and is the closer for like another half dozen years, he's been outstanding this year and has received very little fanfare for it. But if he can, I mean, I'm not going to say if he becomes like another Rivera, because there's not going to be another Rivera. But if he's a competent quality closer like he's been this year, and he does that for another half dozen years, well, then that's great. But the Yankees have a decision to make, because a guy like Robertson is going to require somewhere around 4 years, $60 million to keep him. That's what a quality closer goes for nowadays. Are they just going to hand a job to Dellin Betances, who throws 100 right, and is certainly capable of being a closer from what he's shown this year, and use that money somewhere else? But I don't know if you can, because if you're going to use that money on hitting, there's not a hitter that deserves that money. So it's all about planning and trying to figure out what the future is. The other thing I want to say real quick is, in terms of prospects, the 3 guys I named before, those are their 3 of their better prospects. They also have a pitcher by the name of Luis Severino, who's been outstanding this year. But what the Yankees did a couple of months ago, they had the international signing period. The Yankees just spent a ridiculous amount of money, somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million, and signed a bunch of Latin players, and these are all the players who are, I guess, technically free agents. And there has been talk around Major League Baseball that these players will be added to the regular draft. So there are penalties. Like, the Yankees won't be able to spend more than $500,000, I think is the number, next year on players.
Right.
But if you go over the threshold, and it was somewhere around $2 million, then that restricts your ability to spend next year. But like I said, the prevailing attitude around baseball is that the whole draft system with these players is going to be changed in the next year or two. So the Yankees just went hog wild. And there were a couple other teams that did it too. It's not just the Yankees throwing their money around. It was a couple other teams that did the same thing.
Well, what are they going to do?
But they're going to put these players in the draft. Like, there are like Latin American academies, and they have players. And these kids, they're 17 years old, and they're top prospects, but they don't go through the draft because they're down in Latin America as opposed to growing up in the United States and playing here and playing in our system.
It's more of an employment agreement almost.